Welcome back to the AoE4 action, folks, for another Don Arty match. That's right. You know why I lead saying it's a Don Arty match? Because when it's Don, you know it's going to be entertaining. This guy holds nothing back, and he has been griefing Tips on the ladder. We just watched one showdown between them, between the HRE and the Ayyubids. If you haven't seen it, phenomenal game. Interesting approach coming up from both players. Worth a watch. But let's see what's going to happen in this one. English versus Delhi. This is an interesting matchup, actually, because I think English... If I'm not mistaken, they have a decent shot up against the Delhi, right? We've seen some really good games. It usually comes down to where the resources spawn. So, for example, maps where the wood is closer to the English base, you can deny the Delhi out, you can get a staging point, you can do a lot of damage. I'm actually going to check the statistics matchups from pre-expansion, because then we have the most English Delhi games, right? So English, up against the Delhi, they're at 46.6% at all levels, but if we go Conk Plus... Back then, the Delhi against the English, it was about 50-50. Very slightly favored towards the English. 49.4% win rate for the Delhi. So pretty tight matchup. And I think that fits. I think it depends on the map that you're playing as to whether the Delhi are better or worse. And the problem with that statistic I'm pulling out of my butt, actually not out of my butt, I pulled it out of AoE4 well, which is how I know it's Gucci. It doesn't equate the Don factor. Any statistical matchup you try to calculate here, you forgot to add the variable at the end. The Don variable. 5 villagers now being pulled. He's going for the gold. Now, unfortunately, this is going to be too late to stop Tips, or in theory, it should be. If he goes for the berries, though, this could be sick. How many sheep are we looking at here? Tips has got 9, so it won't kill him. It's sure as hell going to hurt. Villagers instantly in. Pulls the bows again. I love the start step forward. Guarantees a kill. And now he's going to travel around for the gold as well. Oh, dude, what is it? Like, this is... I need more of this. I need more Donsters. Tips. He wishes he got less Donsters, right? He wishes there was less clownery in his games. So moves around. And this should be where Don gathers gold, folks. Like, it's good. You know how gold is for Don? We've talked about this before. Don, he's that kid on the playground that he sees you with your fun toy. And it's exactly the same toy that he's got. But he wants your toy. You look like you're having more fun with your gold than he has with his own. Don's like, oh, so what if I could get a good mining camp here? I want your gold. Oh, Tips. That has to be so vexing as well. Now, upside for Tips, he got the gold necessary for a tech up. Right? So although this is frustrating, it doesn't stop him ticking his box. Gather the food, get up to feudal, still got a game. And he will be quicker. Don is going to be notably slower because he only just built the mining camp. He needs to gather 100 gold. Meanwhile, Tips, by the time that gold's been gathered, Tips should be almost complete with the tech up. I say that. He should be about, like, what? Maybe half the way almost? I think I'm neglecting to remember that this is a 5 gold villager. Okay. Correction, he's going to be a third of the way. If there's a bit of demoralizing, don't build it out here. Don't you dare. I know what you're like. Okay. If he had built the council hall in the enemy base, I would have lost it. It's going to be a council hall at home, but it's also going to be Don doing Don things here. Sorry, did I say Don doing Don things? Should I say Don doing Dom things here? Oh my good God. Do I even put predictions up? I shouldn't. It's a replay game. Wait, what? Oh. Sorry. I was trying to name a file while we got a bit of idle time. I'm sorry if you guys heard that. I maybe was naming the active file, which isn't allowed. So how big is the edge here for Tips? Maybe like 20, 30 seconds? He could drop a stables and do a little bit of damage. I'm just not sure if it's going to be good enough. The problem right here is that everything Don needs is very condensed. He now has an outpost to defend him. He has got all the food gathering underneath the TC. He's got wood gathering that's always going to be protected here. It's a very difficult matchup for the Ghazi Raiders to do a lot in the early phases. But it is always going to be Ghazi, folks. Like the way I've described the Delhi is you always go Ghazi unless someone forces your hand. If someone makes you go archers or spearmen, it's a different matter. But if you have the choice, Ghazi is always the best unit. You know, I just realized I'm sitting here stroking my chin, trying to figure out how Don wants to approach this, and then I remembered it's Don, so why am I... Arrow slits! Of course, we need arrow slits! This isn't going to be a multi-TC, right? I mean, that would be very unlike Don, which I kind of like. I like it when players make themselves less predictable. For anyone who hasn't seen Don before, Don is very much an all-in type player. Like, I feel like every time he plays the game, if we went for a listen-in, you'd hear monkey noises. Aggressive monkey noises. But I'm sorry, Don. But if he went for a second TC, it would completely throw Tips off. Because he just faced Don. Don went for an all-in type strategy. Anytime he's faced Don, Don always goes for an all-in strategy. So actually going for a multi-TC approach, it's a variable level of play that usually we punished in this matchup, but Tips wouldn't expect it. He wouldn't anticipate it. And now look at the perfect counter. Rax on the proxy base, Spimmin here. Don's, oh my god, he's actually doing it. This is a double TC play. Scout's keeping an eye on it. Like right now, Tips, the worst thing he can do is sit here and try and contest his own gold. He needs to go across map. He needs to be fast about it as well. Did he get the blacksmith drop? No. That's problematic. I think you need blacksmiths as a priority here. You're up against English, you're going to have to dive TCs. It's just a given here. If he's quick enough, he might be able to stop Don before he gets enough stone. I mean, he still needs, what, like 4 more holes? It's quite a lot. If Don just builds a handful of longbows here, though, he can slowly whittle down these Ghazi. But Tips, looks like the read is right. He knows something was wrong with this. He will find the stone gatherers. So Don, being a greedy boy, is going to be pushed back here. Tips, can't dive too deep. It's that double arrow fire of the English that does so much damage. But he now knows. And unfortunately for Don, there is no stone nearby. Well, there is very far back, but that kind of beats the point here. Second outpost now up on the berry patch. Okay, ignore me. Is this not a TC after all? I knew he was going to go for arrow slits, but with the amount of wood he's gathering and no longbows, this has to be multi-TC still. Right? Oh, wait. No, I forgot. This is Don. It's more outposts. Oh, my God. Yeah, you're a bit close there, buddy. Is he just... He's bracing the spears, hoping the archers attack them instead. And this is way too ambitious. Don! No! Oh, come on! That was way too greedy! Has got the arrow slits here, though, so a lot of return fire coming in, but textiles on Tips means that his villagers shouldn't really be falling flat. This has to be 2 TC now. Like, this... I'm sorry, but this is... I'm calling for an intervention, Don. This is the 2 TC moment. Right? Right? Oh man, the villagers are stuck here as well. He needs so many more spears. I mean, right now he's targeting down the torches instead of targeting down the archers. Don, oh my god, is he about to lose 5 villagers? Run! Oh my god! Don! He's losing so many eco units here. Spinman can't contest it either. Villagers being stabbed down. One more tappy is going to find it. So 5 worker kills to answer back here. Tips does lose a lot in return there, right? 4 to 5. So overall, they are still neck and neck. Don Hardy, yes, somehow has maintained a villager lead despite this. And now he's like, I've got all this wood. I guess I'm going to buy some longbows. Yeah, we'll do the longbows. Still, that's a lofty loss, right? Outpost, mining camp, lumber camp, racks, double outpost, in fact, plus the arrow slits. Tips able to break out. But keep in mind, folks, what this game really now is. We are 9 minutes into the game, and Tips has yet to claim a sacred site. In fact, he doesn't look like he's ready to go for a sacred site for probably at least another minute. In fact, him going for the sacred site might kill him. Oh my god, no. No, that's so cursed. That's so cursed. Don, get him. Attack! I don't think he's going to attack. Does he think that there's someone here? All right, here we go. He's on his way. Don moves in. Scholar immediately has to run away. Remember, Tips, this is his only Scholar. The star step back should get the kill. Oh, perfectly executed. Don. That's no gold gathering now for Tips for quite a while. He has to move out into the mining camp. He has to get enough gold for his Scholar, which is 130 gold. And he only has 2 villages. He is now 3 minutes away from securing a sacred site, at least. That is massive for the English in this matchup. It means that Tips, I mean, what is this economy right now for step 1? If he was thinking fast castle, that's not coming quickly. Meanwhile, on the other side of this, Don, he's rescaling Lombo line. I mean, he lost a lot with that aggro play early on, right? But like Tips, if he doesn't start reinvesting this food, he's going to give Don a way of catching up. Because Don isn't playing farms like most English players, right? Because Don isn't most English players. He's Don. Which means he goes pocket eco, and everything goes into military. Pretty spooky, actually. I mean, it's just 3 villages right now, but I mean, the timing speak for themselves, right? This is a tough game for Tips. He has to show offensive play on the map, right? Like, because now he has to come out for food. He has to come out for sacred sites. There's so many different exposure points for him. Don, just interested in diving down the center right now, though. Spears peel off to the side to mirror the Ghazi movements. Lombos, a little bit too late to punish the berries, but we are seeing a move out now by Tips. A dangerous move out. He just ran past a lumber camp. Don knows. Getting there is another matter, though. He needs to clear up the Ghazi first, but if he does, if he's able to deal with this cav, he knows exactly where Tips' food eco is. Dangerous game. Dangerous game he played there. I mean, it almost feels neglectful. Like Tips, he took out the important buildings in his eyes, right? The outposts and the racks. But how many times have you seen this with a piece of wall where people don't kill all the wall and then your opponent sees you because of the vision there? Same thing with this lumber and mining camp. And only burning it down now is also problematic. Yeah, just look at how different Tips' approach to the map is now, right? He fully retracts away from posturing frontside. He has to guard over on the food. And, well, that means that Don is going to get a front staging point. If he brings a villager up and drops an outpost here, it's a very difficult fight for the Delhi. And, well, remember, this blacksmith is really late, right? Like, I think it only just got dropped, so Undermesh feels like it's a mile away, right? He's only got 1 scholar again. 3 minutes out until he's got that tech. Very hard to take a fight against mass Lombos in that time. Speaking of those Lombos, a reach in. And a tap down. Oof, villager barely survives that. Or might not be so lucky though. Don going full in here. What? That is such an aggressive dive. Get some villager kills for it though. Turns around in time to try and deal with the archers. However, the spearmen are now exposed. Don, only with 5 spears here, needs to be careful. Where are the Ghazi? Huh? They feel a little bit late. Finally arriving. Are going to go in. Spearmen pull forward. Lombo sniping down what they can. Really needs some palings, but he's not going to be able to get that out. Don throwing away a lot with that dive. Lombos are going to be cornered. They're going to be pinned, and they're going to get killed. Tips able to punish Don Artie's overgreed. Or over aggro, rather. Dude, that's such a costly loss as well. Don, all that to dive the wood line. It feels so unnecessary. Now Don, with half the military count, he does at least strip a few more eco units away from Tips, but Tips, just such a lofty army now. 15, make that 16 Ghazi. That's definitely one way of putting it. That is probably not worth. Has to back away from where he was gathering deer. I mean, the good news, at least he cleared out the deer. Bad news, now Tips is let loose on the map. 2 scholars can move straight away for those sacred sites. The army can move straight towards Don's base. Don, man, having to go back for farms now. I mean, they're cheaper, but this resets you. It sets you back in a game where you need to get all the military mass back together again. Also, keep in mind, that was without the undermesh, which is coming in 1 minute and 10 seconds. Don has yet to drop a blacksmith's here. Doesn't actually have an answer to what's coming. Okay, Tips is apparently scared of an outpost. Well, we've all been there. We've all had those Mongol experiences. I mean, if he just locks these sacred sites, that's all that needs to be happening here. But right now, he's not guarding. Tips? Well, he is guarding. He's just guarding the wrong thing. The scholars are worth more right now. No. Don shouldn't be allowed this. This is a freebie that should never occur. I mean, he sees him. He saw him so much earlier. Tips. These are the type of mistakes you can't afford on the Delhi. It's all about that optimal timing, and we're now 15 minutes in the game. He's yet to capture a sacred site once. And this should have been happening sooner. These Ghazi, I feel like this raid idea came way too late. Like, imagine if he was making that move when he loses the Scholar. He's already in, he's finding villagers, he's killing probably 10. And Don doesn't have wheelbarrow or textiles. It's like, it's a GG type moment, right? It's that big of a lead with this many Ghazi. Instead, Tips, he's playing a very defensive format of Delhi from a position that makes no sense for it right now, right? Like, he's not taking sacred sites. It's not like you're going for a TC beam behind this. You're not fast castling. You are escalating military, but every time you wait like this, you're giving Don a chance to recover. So finally marches forward. Goes past the outpost. Don's just going to idle this. He's going to delay this. He's got the aura to work with. Spearman will push back against this. I mean, this is awkward the way that Tips has dove past. He's finally turning around with his outpost, but it's just awkward, the approach to this, right? Like, I'd rather have seen him go for maybe the siege engineering as a priority. Get a ram and address this while you dive. Instead, it's just like this sore sticking point because the Ghazi move so much quicker than the archers. It's why usually Ghazi thrive as a raiding unit. It's literally in the name for that reason. You shouldn't be looking to take the main fight right now. Especially the way that Don's not giving it to you for free. Sacred Site has finally been capped, by the way. Like, it took 16 minutes into the game. He got it. Now he's immediately losing it. Oh, this is so tough to watch. I don't remember the last time I saw a Delhi player so goldless. Probably was a gold level Delhi player. And by the way, that's not me insulting Tips. It's just the way Don is playing this is so frustrating. Big shout out to Pepper coming through with the sub, by the way. I appreciate you, buddy. Don, despite all the losses, unwilling to submit to the Delhi Sultanate. A wrap round the back from the Ghazi. In on top of the Spearman, though. They get a perfect opportunity to stab back. So many Ghazi raiders going down here. Don is going to lose out in the end. But honestly, from his position, I mean, the trade feels like it was a lot better than it ever had any right being. Don still just starts stepping back. Lombo's trading out with the archers. Spearman pushing back. The Ghazi, I mean, this hesitation to commit, I think, is costing Tips more than he's gaining. Finally recommits in. Don should more or less get cleared up here. But the damage done to Don's forces and Tips' alike is most noticeable here, right? The Ghazi, although still alive, most of them are heavily injured, and the archer count just down to 7. Yeah, honestly, that felt like a very costly fight there for Tips. I think he hesitated a bit because he saw the Spearman, and the typical play there, right, is when you're up against spears, you fake commit your cav, spears get baited in range, archers A-click into them automatically. But when the count was down to about, I think it was 5 Spearmen at one stage, I think there was still about 12, 13, maybe 14 Ghazi. That's the moment where you needed to pinch the archers, clear them up. It's still a decent fight, but considering how much bigger Tips' army was, right, it doesn't feel great at the end of it for Don Artie to even still be standing in this area. And now, because that's I saw that outpost and now the racks alongside it, Don's able to quickly just re-bolster and decap that sacred site again. Oh, Tips just came through the raid. Yo, what's up, Tips? Thank you very much, man. Hopefully the other games went better than this, than the Don games. We already watched one of them. Tips, now with the dive again. There are a few men-at-arms, but men-at-arms aren't great here against Ghazi. Ghazi that hit harder than Horsemen, have the bonus damage versus Heavy. Should be a good unit to deal with you. And finally, that's what was missing. That's what we've been waiting for. That moment right there. Just get on the Lombos, commit hard, and push him back. Tips now in a position where he should be able to lock in these sacred sites. Still needs a ram, though. Or you can just burn it down. I mean, it's going to be a bit more costly to burn this down, right? Because of the torch armor. But I think he's got enough Ghazi raiders that it should happen. And this should be free sacred sites. The question I now have is, has this taken too long? Because this is good news for Tips, the position he's played from. The bad news is Don has permanent food, right? Like, look at the amount of farms that he's set up. 33 farms now. And they're the English, so they're not very expensive. And they're more efficient. So the worry I have is Don, in his eyes, he says, okay, I've reached the point that I was waiting for, right? Which is mass men-at-armsing. Once you have this many farm clusters, once you have over 30 farms, it's very doable. And although I highlight that the Ghazi do fare better than most horsemen against the men-at-arms, it's still men-at-arms, right? And it still means you're going to struggle to reach these Lombos. Also, Tips has a huge miss macro issue here. He's saving up for Imperial Age. Tips, we have a rule, all right? Never go Imperialist Delhi. Obviously, he needs to go castle first, but the point is he has, like, huge gaps in what he's doing right now, right? Because this is one of the weaknesses of the Delhi. If you're not optimal with your macro, you can't spend it, right? If he built more Ghazi right now, but he's planning to tech up, it's wasted resources. So instead, he just has to wait until he's got what he needs for castle, and then spam more knights if he's able to. Here we go, compound defender on the way. Men-at-arms have revealed themselves. Don. This is an all-in, folks. Don is on record saying he does not like late game. All right, he's sick and tired of it. If you could not tell by Don's opening that he dislikes late game, you must have been asleep. And it means that Tips' attempt to get closer to it, well, Don's going to come in with the stamp that just says denied and hit it. Keep in mind, Tips also doesn't have infinite food here. He has, what, 7 farms, I believe it is? He's exhausted the berries. There's deer in the corner, but that is it. Tips ready to pick up the relics, though, so that's going to be a booster. But right now, his issue that I see in the future isn't going to be gold. It's going to be food. There's 30 men-at-arms, man. I don't know how you stop this right now. They're in. This looks like the beginning of the end. He's even torching down the TC. I mean, who can blame him? That's 22 men-at-arms right now. Lombos baiting for a fight. Tech up complete, but Tips, you're in a hole, my friend. A 6 feet deep hole. Do you know what those are made for? They're made for burying people. And these men-at-arms are looking to do exactly that. TC down to half HP. He's not even fighting the army. He's literally just going for landmarks. Don is on cloud 9 right now. Could not be happy with this. 35 farms is enough to keep the army trucking for good. Peels off some of the men-at-arms to fight, some to hang around the TC, and the choke point stops the Ghazi from getting around. A terrible fight here for Tips. Lances are finally coming out, but it's just so many men-at-arms. Tips now being tripled up on military. TC almost dead. The only thing that hasn't killed the rest of his army right now is the fact that Don is trying to burn down a 7,000 HP building. But that shouldn't bring you comfort. That should make you panic. Oh, Tips. He's just losing the lances, the mass men-at-arms and Lombos now. I mean, it's just unsustainable, right? His food income is plummeting. He barely has any on the map right now. I think it's fair to say that this game is done. Crazy game. From the way Don opened this up to the way he closes. I mean, Tips, it took him so long to get Sacred Site control. I think he thought that this was going to turn into a macro game, right? Don was just going to go Castle Age like all English players do in this type of situation. But he forgot something critical, an important detail in this game. This is not any English player. He should have known that from the first 5 minutes of gameplay. This is Don Artie, the anti-castle boy. He is going to end this game feudal English versus Castle Delhi. Because why tech up? What's the need? And oh, what's that? Your opponent spamming lances? Great, just bring spears. Tips now completely migrating out of his base to the flanks. The only reason Tips is still in this game is because he snuck onto the enemy side of the map to gather food. He's like, if you're going to take my gold at the start of the game, I'm going to take your food in the mid. Don's like, fine. You can have that food. But that means I get your landmarks, right? Oh, man. And now Don finally going Castle Age because apparently Tips, he's like, I can still win this. Don says there's one way to convince him he cannot. I wouldn't be surprised if Tips calls GG the moment the tech up completes. He might even call GG now. He's down to 1 Lancer. For goodness sake, you can't even get them out of the base anymore. What a crazy game. Don Artie forces his hand. GG comes out. There ain't nothing like an English Donster game.